Good morning. Today we are continuing with our X's and Y's with those ordered pairs, but instead of graphing, we are working on making function tables. Our next objective will be working on graphing those. So we're still in the same kind of thing, but we're just coming at it in a different way. So we are doing CO49. I can create a function table. In a function table, we will have an input and an output. So our input in the function table is what, oh my goodness. And it was supposed to, restarting my computer was supposed to solve everything, and it actually didn't. So let's try it this way. I'm going to type in what you need to write. So our input is what you plug into an equation. It's what's being tested. So the input is what you plug into the equation, what you're putting in. So think about if you have a variable, what you're putting in for that variable, what's being tested. Your output then is the result of the equation or test. So the input's what you're putting in, and what happens be the answer that you get because of that is your output. So our function table is a way to organize multiple inputs and outputs to get ordered pairs for a graph. So the function table organizes all of our inputs and the outputs. So we know inputs are our X's and outputs are our Y's. So the input would be your X and the output is your Y. So what you're putting in goes on the X side of our function table. What you get as an answer because of that is your output, your Y. The equation we get from a function table is also known as the rule of the table. So every table, there's going to be a rule that you follow. It's that pattern. What gets us our pattern? So we need to create a function table with at least 4 inputs and outputs for each equation that's given. Remember, you get to choose the inputs for your table, so choose smart ones. And I'm going to show us what that means to choose smart ones. So let's look at this first one. I'm going to put a piece of loose leaf under my document camera since my smartboard is being, technical craziness on a Tuesday. So I'm going to do it on the document camera, but I will do the same equation that we have in our manual. So let's open up the document camera. Our first equation is y equals x plus 1. So for my function table, I'm going to put the x on the left, the y on the right, just like when we do our ordered pairs. X is on the left, Y is on the right. Layla, I'm going to have you sit at the back table. I need us all to be able to focus. So I need you to write the start of our function table. X on the left, Y on the right. And we need to have at least 4, what did he call it? 4 inputs and outputs. So I'm going to make 4 spots. Let's say I want my first X to be 1. So if I have Y equals X plus 1, and I put a 1 in for the X, so now I have 1 plus 1. What does that equal? 2. So that's my Y. My Y is 2. If I put a 1 in for X, my Y is a 2. So let's put a 2 in for X. What is my Y going to be? Zelda? 3. If I put a 3 in for my X, what is my Y going to be? 4. And now I'm going to put a 4 in for my X. What is my Y going to be? That one was a little bit easier, right? If I put a 1 in, I get a 2. If I put a 2 in, I get a 3, because I'm only adding 1 every time. If I put a 10 in for my X, what would I get? 11. So I don't have to go in order. I can say 10 plus 1 would have gotten me 11. Is this the only answer that we could put in our function table? No, because remember it says you get to choose what your input is. You get to choose what the X is. I chose to do 1, 2, 3, 4 because they were easy numbers to work with. You don't want to overcomplicate this. Let's look at our next problem. Is Y equals 2X. So first thing I do is I make my table. And I put my 4 spots because I need to have 4 inputs and outputs. And now I need to decide what I want to use for my input, for my X. So if I have Y equals 2X, what's something I could put in for an X, Jimena? 2. If I put a 2 in for my X, and I have a 2 there, what operation do I need to do? Multiply. So what is my Y? 4. Because 2 times 2 is 4. What else could I put in for my X? What should I put in? Let's see. I'm looking for somebody whose voice I don't hear a lot. We talked a lot at conferences about participating. What should I put in for my X? Dom. 3. So if I put a 3 in for the X, I know it's 2 times 3. What is my output is 6. So I need 2 more. What else should I put in for my X? Claire? I could put a 4 in. So I would have 2 times 4. What is my output going to be, Connor? 8. So Connor, did you have one that you wanted me to put in?
Yeah.
Go ahead. 15. So I could put a 15 in for my X. What is my output going to be if my input was 15? Ava? 30. It does not have to go in a pattern. Why might you want to show a pattern? Marina? It's easier to keep track of. You by no means have to do that. You could put in whatever input you want. You could put in 2, 10, 15, and 17. Is it going to be as easy to see a pattern? Nope. Over on this one, we could see an easy pattern because our inputs went in one right after another. So it's easier to see a pattern. You don't have to do a pattern. On the test, I'm going to check if I put a 15 in for X, do I get 30 for my Y, my output? That's what I'm looking for. So it doesn't have to be a pattern, but it might help you on the test know that you're doing it correctly. Our next one is y equals 3x minus 8. So again, I start off the same way. I make my function table with my x and my y. X is always first because in our ordered pair, x is always first. I make my 4 spots, and then I have to ask myself, what should I put in for x? Madeline. Okay, so if I put a 3 in for x, for my input, what do I get for my output? What do I have to do to solve this, Melanie? Yeah, I have to do the 3 times 3 first, and then I subtract my 8. So 3 times 3 was 9, minus my 8. What is my output, Dom? 1. So when it said that you need to choose smart ones for your inputs, choosing smart ones would be choosing numbers that are easy to work with. I don't want to put a 15 in for my input if it's not easy for me to multiply with that because I have to multiply it. Choose easy ones to work with. If we look at our middle problem, we have y equals 1/2 x. I'm going to make my function table and my 4 spots. I want to choose easy numbers here for my input. What might easy numbers be if I see I want a half of it? Zelda? So what's a half of 1, Zelda? Yeah. Is it always easy to work with decimals and fractions? No, it's not the easiest. We can make this easier on ourselves. What might be an easy number for me to multiply by half? Callie? 4. If I put a 4 in, I have 1/2 times 4. Half of 4 is 2, right? So those even numbers are going to be easier to work with because I can divide it by that 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. I could put in a 6, say 1/2 of 6. I know that off the top of my head. I know a half of 6 is 3. Use numbers that are easy to work with. Would it be wrong if we put in a 1 and we said our answer is 0.5 because that's half of 1 is a half? No, that wouldn't be wrong. It's just not as easy for me to work with. Decimals aren't as easy for me to have, right? It's easier for me to say a half of an even number. I can do that quickly in my head. So use numbers that are easy for you to work with. What might be another number that we could put in so I can have 4 on here? Layla? 2. If I put a 2 in, what is a half of 2, Layla? 1. Okay, so when you come to those fractions, when we're dividing, choose a number that's divisible by that denominator. So you get those whole numbers. Whole numbers are much easier to work with. All right. Any questions on today's assignment? All right, so here's what we are doing today. You are doing the rest of these equations. You're turning into function tables, making sure that your input, you put down what your input gives you as your output, your x. You put your x in. What does that equal for our y? Input and output. You're completing this whole page. Then you are checking on Blackbaud. What do I have missing? Do I have to do missing Khan Academy from last week? Do I have to look at that social studies scores that I put in? Do you have any missing that you need to take care of? Work on math packet number 8. We have not done that video yet because I want you trying to figure them out on your own. So we have 3 weeks, we always know. So the first half of that time is trying to figure it out on our own, because when we get to the math tests in the spring, we're not going to have a video telling us how to solve those problems. So try it on your own first. So you should be working on math packet number 8, trying to answer what you can answer, trying to figure out what you're not sure of. Can you figure it out like you would on the math test? Amanda? It could be, but you want to make sure that any input you put in, it's easy for you to work with. So I wouldn't want to put in 9. Personally, I wouldn't put a 9 in for my input here because a half of 9 isn't a whole number. I like my whole numbers. It wouldn't be wrong to say my output is 4.5. It's just not as easy to work with. So I would say for your inputs, make your inputs all whole numbers and try to use whole numbers that will give you an easy output. Okay? Any other questions? All right, if you are watching this at home, I hope you are well. I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.